Hello. Going to be testing. I can't remember which one this is. Mankind Divided. Keep forgetting between this and Human Revolution. Quickly take the overlay off. So graphic settings going in for pretty much max here. Yeah, I think actually this is everything at max. So you've got your overall level of detail here, which this doesn't seem to do much. I found. Like there's a built-in benchmark. I'm not going to be using that due to the frame rates that you get inside that benchmark compared to what you get inside the game are pretty far apart, because I think the benchmark is a really demanding scene compared to everything else. So going to have that on max. Chromatic aberration is just a lens effect. Sharpen, game looks fine, so we're keeping it on. Screen space reflections, parallax occlusion mapping, it's all on the highest up here. Ambient occlusion, it doesn't say what type of ambient occlusion this is. You can see in the background, like the effects here of what difference that makes. I think it's an AMD game, so it might not be HBA, probably something else. Cloth physics. This is handy to turn off if you're having issues on the CPU side of things. Generally, what I can tell from this game, it's mostly GPU bound though. Subsurface scattering is pretty demanding. It's for, so it says up there, lighting a skin, but it's kind of like a very demanding effect that's only used in a few games really, but it looks okay. Volumetric lighting, this has a pretty big effect, so if you're having trouble, turn this down. Depth of field, that's usually just preference. I'm having an ultra for the sake of benchmarking. Motion blur is also the same thing. I usually turn it off, but for the sake of this. Temporal anti-aliasing is it's very light and it's pretty good in this game. You want Nalon instead of MSAA. MSAA in this really tanks. And then shadows max and texture filtering is all the highest. For ultra setting and very high setting, I think it's that you need 4 gigs of VRAM, by the way. In display here, this is where you set MSAA. For some reason, this isn't with graphics options. DX12 will be coming in about 2 weeks, I think they said. Right, put the overlay back up. See, the frame rate's very good, but then as soon as you unpause it, goodbye frame rate. Right, so this is on the GTX 1070 and my Xeon 2630 V3. The game is overclocked. Not game. The GPU is overclocked, as you can see up there. Memory is overclocked, and so is core clock. But it's not a very good sign when you have less than 60 FPS looking at a wall. This game, I don't know, it looks fantastic. Like honestly, it might not come from the video compression here, but you can just run up to these books and just read all the kind of spines on them. There's like hundreds of them. The game is like fantastic for just the amount of sheer objects on screen, but performance is not so great. Like, considering Doom was running at over 100 FPS, Total War Warhammer for me runs really well, like generally like 90 FPS in battles, and this is just nowhere near. It's kind of a shame. So like, outside areas you've got tessellation going on with the stones. I think the stones also, like, they look a bit shiny, they look rather metallic rather than cobble. But no, it looks good, but like, what's that here? Like 45 FPS on it? Like it's something like a 1070. That really shouldn't be happening. A lot of people on the forums, like all over the place, because I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, the game runs fine. The game runs fine. You can max it out on like a GTX 970." But that might be the case at 1080p. But this is 1440p, and a 980 Ti/1070 would have issues. I'm not sure about you, but the music's rather loud at my end. Turn it down a sec. But no, this is like one of the most impressive libraries I've seen. And I'll walk around this area. I won't want to spoil anything because I just imagine a lot of people want to keep the story to themselves on this. There's just a lab back here. This is right at the start of the game. For anybody who's worried about spoilers, like an hour in. So you're not going to see anything here that's going to ruin your experience. God, frame times rather high. Right, even so, like, there's nothing in this elevator, and oh, we just got over 60 FPS there. But this is what I mean by sheer amount of objects on screen. It's just ludicrous, and they do the very nice, like, the text isn't like clear that stage, but like stuff on the wall looks pretty good, like especially from here. But I know it seems to be one of the best looking games this year, and also one that doesn't run so great. I'm wondering if it's much to do with DX12 being delayed, and it was the plan to have this game running so well in DX12. But generally, we haven't seen good improvements on Nvidia cards, and there doesn't seem to be any CPU issue to worry about. So I'm not sure if it's going to help us too much. I will do another video when DX12 comes out, but I'm not holding my breath for that to improve the game a huge amount. Okay, I'll walk around this hub area because it's a bit more open. You can see here. This is closer to the frame rate you expect in the benchmark out in this hub area. See, it's very detailed environments. Oh. Just run into policeman.
Otherwise you cannot go through. I know the drill.
I'll just like quickly get through this dialogue. I'll just skip through it so nothing's given away. Yes.
Don't blow your cover.
But that's it. I'm not sure like what is causing those lower frame rates. Well, I'll show you what the benchmark actually runs like. I'm doing it the other way around this time because in-game seems to be a lot more relevant. Extras. Yeah, benchmark is under extras here rather than in the graphics options where it usually is. Also, first time loads seem to be a little long if you're going to be playing story, which is the only mode, but like if you're going to be playing for the story, I'd recommend put it on your SSD if you have one. But though it is a big game, so over 40 gigs. You can see here what I mean by like the performance though. Like we never saw 32 while playing, but this scene does seem to use it all. You can see a lot of reflections in the like lighting in the puddles. There's a lot of volumetric lighting on all these lights. They've got a lot of, you know, they don't look like straight light shafts. It looks like it's actually lighting up the air around it. And it's also here where you see like just a huge amount of objects on the screen. All these little notes, signs, all the rubbish. It's an impressive engine. It just needs to run better, honestly. Got blue hair. I'll quickly run through this benchmark, and then I'll tweak down the settings, and I'll run through it again. So if you want to see like tweaked performance of what I was using. The cloth at the back looks weird. It looks like it's just flickering and the little holes are moving. I don't know. And you can see that on the VRAM. We're not too far over 4 gigs, about 4.5. But that may be potential issues for some 4 gig cards like the GTX 980 Fury X. Because the average 36.6, minimum 30.6. The maximum 44 there was actually like less ammo he was getting in the library, so that's why I would say this is not a too good indicator of what to expect actually in-game. Right, I'll talk a lot for a sec. Texture quality, that doesn't make too much difference from noticed. I'm pretty sure I have to restart. I'll put shadow quality down, this down from ultra to on. I could leave on temporal because it looks good and it doesn't actually affect frame rates too much. We go from depth of field to just on. We'll keep bloom on. Volumetric lighting would turn down. Subsurface scattering off. It doesn't make a huge amount of difference what I found in terms of looks, but excuse me, but it does in frame rates. Cloth physics would leave on, we're not CPU bound in any way. Ambient occlusion would just turn down. Tessellation would leave on because that's a rather fundamental DX11 effect, if you ask me. Parallax occlusion mapping would turn this down, and screen space reflections. I think I had this just on rather than off because it does make a good difference. And chromatic aberration I turn off because I don't like it. Level of detail, not going to turn that down because when I was benchmarking this without shadow play, it made less than 1 FPS difference. So I'll just turn the overlay back on. And you can see here it turned a lot of effects from like ultra down to high or just lowered them, and the frame rates aren't that much better. Since like the overall level of detail from very high to high didn't change anything, I would expect turning down a lot of those additional effects would. But I don't know. And sound has bugged out on my end as well. Though we are like seeing frame rates in the 50s, while our maximum last time was 44, so that is a good sign. But as you can see, the lighting with the volumetric lighting turned down, it does look a lot different. As for as I said, with CPU usage up there, excuse me, you can see that we're not reaching too high on any single core. Maybe sometimes 60% on the first core, but apart from that, not too much. But generally, that was a bit smoother, just not as much as you would want or expect. If you want to get a minimum of 60 FPS, I'm going to imagine you're going to need a lot of things turned down. Yeah, our minimum was 40. If you want a minimum of 60, just good luck. Probably just turn down all the settings you can. Right, to finish off, I'm just going to quickly load back into the story, and you can see the performance of these adjusted settings in a real-world gameplay scenario. You can also see what I mean about loading screens for this first time load. It's very quick in loading for like loading old saves. If you die or if you say muck up a section you want to reload, that's quick, but the initial load takes a while. Just see there, it's just adding things to VRAM. It's also interesting because I think we're like higher on VRAM on this loading screen than we was in the benchmark. There it goes. Yeah, our VRAM usage now compared to in the benchmark. But frame rate here is a lot better. Like over 50s compared to being in low to mid 40s. Actually over 60 FPS in points. Got up to nice 70 here. Like this frame rate, like in this area here, this is how I'd expect the game to run all the time, honestly. Low 70s. It is a great looking game, and I expect it maybe not to run as well as things as Doom, just because of sheer like complexity of scenes compared, but I don't know, I don't think it justifies the drops down to low 50s and even in the 30s on higher settings. But yeah, as you can see here, this runs a lot smoother, and these are the settings I would personally recommend like setting up for like a smoother experience, at least until the game's patched or DX12 comes along. Either way. Right. And I think this is where we started. Yeah, like beforehand I was like on 50 odd, that's in the 70s. Okay, like, I hope that was useful to you. As I said, I will do another video on DX12. It'll just be like probably a quick benchmark with the same settings, like in the actual benchmark utility showing comparison. But as I said, I wouldn't hold my breath for that improving things too much. Anyway, thank you for watching. Leave a like if this helped you, and I shall see you soon.